This is the captioner, and I hate to interrupt, but I'm still waiting for.
Go ahead. Okay, team, are we ready to go?
No, Amy, not yet. Okay, Amy, you have to go ahead to start.
Okay, I was typing a message and I'm pretty good at multitasking, but typing and talking is sometimes tricky. So I want to go ahead and call the meeting to order. I'm Amy Neal and I'm the executive, actually, I'm Amy Neal Bundy. I got married on Sunday, Monday, Bundy. I'm not used to saying it yet. So I got married on Sunday to a wonderful man. And I'm stepping in today for Dr. Felicia Cummings Smith. She is our outstanding chairperson. And so I hope to do this meeting justice. Felicia is at a board meeting, so we'll miss her today, but I'll do my best. So next slide, please. Just going to quickly go over the agenda. We're going to do a little bit of a different spin today with our partners for the agency updates, have an executive director report, and some really important progress updates. And very exciting news that, again, we have a surplus for tobacco settlement. And so we'll have a vote on how to invest that funding. But I want to take just a minute to officially welcome Joe Barry as a newly appointed member of the Early Childhood Advisory Council. We mentioned it during the last meeting, but we are so excited to have Joe. He is the executive director of the Public Life Foundation from Owensboro, Kentucky. He is bright and an influencer and a strategic thinker and so many other things. And Joe, if there's anything that you'd like to say or not, you've got the floor, but we're so thrilled to have you here, Joe.
Well, thank you, Amy. That's thank you for those very kind comments, and as exaggerated as they may be. I just want to say I'm very pleased to be here. It's an honor to serve, an honor to be amongst this great group, and I look forward to learning from all of you all and doing some great work to help the children in the Commonwealth. So I'm excited to be here.
Welcome, Joe. We're glad to have you. Okay, next slide, please. Okay, so this is exciting news. Yes, with state government comes staff turnover. So while we're sad to see some of our friends leave, we also get to welcome some great people. So during the meeting, I'm going to welcome some new staff. Our first chance to meet one of the new as the former deputy secretary. Gosh, I'm scattered right now. I can't think of somebody on our team, please. Mary Pat Regan. She deemed us the A team at the First Early Childhood Institute. She called us the A team, so we just keep going by the A team. So Robin Johnson is our new administrative assistant. She fits right in. She is a light of sunshine. She has over 20 years of experience working in child care centers. So that means she automatically is a rock star. She's persistent. She's a hard worker, and we're so happy to have her. So I'm going to turn it over to Robin to do the roll call. We do not need to vote on minutes because we found out that it's not required that we do minutes at the meetings. And with the staff transition, we can't put our fingers on the minutes from the March 15th meeting. So Robin, I'm going to turn it over to you for the roll call. Thanks.
Okay, Brittany Howe. Dr. Amy Hood.
Here, hello.
Tracy Stimming. Amy Smith.
Here.
Dr. Felicia Cummins Smith.
Good morning. I'm Leslie Wilson here in Dr. Smith's place today.
Anita Dowd. Dr. Annette Bridges. Rena Gratz.
Here, good morning. I mean, afternoon.
Afternoon. Senator Danny Carroll. Scotty Collier. Dr. Connie White. Dr. Jason Gilbert. Dr. Jason Glass.
Present.
Secretary.
This is Dr. Thomas Williams, proxy for Dr. Glass.
Secretary Eric Freelander. Joe Barry.
I'm here.
Kim Visian.
I'm here.
Deputy Secretary Beth Brindley.
This is Chelsea Follis. I'm the proxy for Deputy Secretary Beth Brindley.
Representative Kim Banta. Paula Goff.
Here.
Lynn Baker.
Here.
Andrea Day.
Here.
Travis Burton. Twyla Burdette.
I'm here.
Greta McKenzie. Beth Morton. And Dee Dee Cummins. Thank you.
So I would just remind folks that the meeting is being recorded. And you're encouraged, members are encouraged to have their cameras on. So I'll turn mine back on. And we are going to take action notes rather than meeting minutes. And that's the process that we follow during all of our committee meetings. Thank you, Andrew. Very good. Yes, Andrew's here as the proxy for Dr. White, and we so appreciate it. Okay. So moving on, we're going to do our partner agency updates, but just quickly before we get there, just as a reminder, as Dr. Cummings Smith always does, just highlighting the original goals of the Kentucky Governor's Office of Early Childhood, and that is promoting greater collaboration among state and community, emphasizing quality and elevating continuous improvement, and then, of course, ensuring that more children arrive at kindergarten prepared. Next slide. So I just, we don't do direct services. That's never been the intent of the Kentucky Governor's Office of Early Childhood. And we accomplish our work with and through our partners. And I just can't say enough about our partnership with the Kentucky Department of Education, Cabinet for Health and Family Services, Head Start, and the partners' names that you see on the list. And March 15th really seems like yesterday, but at the same time, it seems like a really long time ago. But I remember vividly meeting together as an advisory council and just being blown away by the partner reports. And so what we talked about as we were planning for this meeting was really focusing in on the preschool development grant and honing in on the needs assessment. And having the partners really talk about the journey that we're on with the needs assessment and how difficult, which I know all of you all know, how difficult long-term changes and sustaining work is. And we often say this, how we're going slow to go fast. And if you'll recall from the last meeting, the partner agency updates were so robust. And there were so many connections to the preschool development grant. And it's so important that we align our strategic initiatives. That's really what we wanted to do today. So, Robin, if you wouldn't mind going to the next slide, because what you're going to see is just that it is oh, good, it's bigger than what it appeared on the slide. The writing was tiny, tiny, tiny. And it's the logic model. And you all are going to see a whole lot of this because we use this just about every day in our office. We use this with our implementation partners because, over the 3 years, this is where we want to get to with the preschool development grant. And that is that long-time goal of identifying bright spots. Bright spots is just our little buzzword that we're using for just what are those evidence-based strategies, right? How do we align Kentucky's fiscal investments so that we can sustain the priorities, so that we can accelerate growth and create long-term impact? So to do that, we've got to prioritize continuous quality improvement, training and coaching for program staff. Paula Golf is great about always sort of flagging and elevating that. Thomas is so great about the piece around talking about coordinating the administration of birth to third grade programs, strategically combining multiple funding sources to increase access and improve quality. Andrea was in a half-day conversation about that on Monday. and then creating those broad-based coalitions and support. So you'll see those short-term, long-term, and then the ultimate goal over on the right-hand side. You know, Kentucky has a best-in-class data capabilities to track and invest in bright spots. High-quality, affordable care is available for all Kentuckians who want and need it. And then more children have a strong start and are reading proficiently by 3rd grade. So before I kick it over to our partners, I've got some sort of strategic questions. I'm gonna pretend like I'm Felicia and do probably a mediocre job. But just want to remind you all, the Preschool Development Grant has 6 required components. The very first one is the refreshing of the needs assessment. So what Kentucky said was, you know, look, there's a lot of data out there in Kentucky, and we need to lean into the data that's there. Not old data, but, you know, recent data that's either being collected, already collected, newly collected. And so that's what we need to do is go ahead and connect with our partners to get that data, be very intentional about it, be very thorough about it, because we don't want to duplicate efforts. And so those conversations and making those connections and being very strategic, that takes a very long time. But we want to make sure that you all recall the 6 required elements of the Preschool Development Grant. And the first one, although we can move in parallel paths, is that refresh needs assessment. And the other piece is what we're wanting to do is just, again, not reinvent the wheel and follow the model that we've been using with our Kentucky Regional Collaborative Network, is around the frame of ready communities, ready families, and ready schools, because we believe that makes a lot of sense. So I see we only have 5 minutes. So Lynn or Rebecca, I think, is my timekeeper. We're going to stretch this for just a couple more minutes, okay? And hopefully make up some time on the end. So Paula, Thomas, Andrea, I'm going to pose to each of you all one strategic question. And if you can just keep in mind that we've got a limited amount of time. I took too much time and I do apologize. Paula, here's your question. What cross-sector opportunities do you see ahead with the needs assessment when you're thinking around health?
Well, I think there's a lot that we can do to help. Number one is providing education and supports to parents to make good decisions about the health needs of their children, following up on well care, those types of things. Child care does a lot of that as part of their enrollment, but we have a number of families that don't use child care. And we want to make sure that, you know, before you can really have high expectations for any child, they have to be healthy. They need food. We need to look at how can we work together to ensure that we address, you know, food insecurity. And I think, again, there's a lot of players between the schools, childcare, the agencies that work like in our program, and other community groups out there working together to ensure that the food security issues for the children and families in their communities are addressed, and it's something's there to help them. When you put all these people together, that collective impact will be incredible to really hit that, just those pieces of making sure young children are healthy.
Paula, that's great. Anything you'd like to mention quickly about developmental screening? Does that come to mind at all?
Yes, it does. I think that's, again, another great practice that helps us identify those children who may be at risk, who may need additional supports. And so developmental screening is done, you know, quite a bit in Kentucky. It's just very uncoordinated. with lots of pockets doing their own thing. So the question is, how can those become more coordinated so that we ensure that we hit the biggest number of the population that we can and identify issues early for these children and their families?
Okay, great. I'm going to move to Dr. Williams, ask him a targeted question, and then Andrea. And then we're going to pause and just see if the advisory council members have any quick questions. I am going to, as a goal, because I spent too much time on this talking, I'm going to quickly go through the executive director report, and with the goal of pushing information out, because again, I'm serving a dual role today. So I hope that's okay with the advisory council members. Dr. Williams, when you think of the system integration in the sort of P to third grade space and the needs assessment, does something stand out for you as a priority or priorities when you think of system integration and the needs assessment?
Yeah, so what immediately comes to mind is quality. It's preschool quality. And so as we know, is that quality is the heart of everything we do within preschool. And so that's immediately where my mind goes to. When we look at during COVID, as we look at, a lot of our programs changed due to COVID. A lot of our practices changed due to COVID. And as we look at, as we came out of COVID, looking at quality in a lot of spaces were not developmentally appropriate, and not just in Kentucky, but throughout the country. And so when I look at the needs assessment, and when I lean into cross sector, I lean into the space of quality and making sure that our children have the best education possible in order to be successful throughout their career.
Thanks, Dr. Williams. Andrea, I'm going to go ahead and transition over to you and talk about what I'm thinking about is that sense-making meeting we had, and how, when you think about writing a grant, you can develop these really fancy, beautiful plans, and it all sounds really nice. And then once you start implementing, things can change real quick. So if we have our heads down, we can miss a lot of opportunities. And I wonder if there's anything you may share with the advisory council on how we're really working together to ensure that we're using the funding in the most appropriate and impactful way in Kentucky.
Sure. And it kind of piggybacks on what Paula and Dr. Williams and you have already said. The collaboration and making sure that all parties are at the table and that there is a voice. And it's not only just state or lead agencies having that voice, but practitioners, parents. That gets us buy-in, and then we can address the issues, not just that we conceptualize as issues, but what are those things that we need to invest our money in to give us long-term change and make long-lasting impacts on the ECE community long-term? Because again, those investments in ECE, the return on that investment is huge. And the more that we can collaborate and work together, the more funds we can leverage and the greater outcomes for all of our sectors. Because even though I say all of our sectors, I'm at childcare, Dr. Williams is at KDE, we have Head Start, but we're all one big sector. And if we can come together and coordinate the work, we can get so much more accomplished for our children.
Thanks, Andrea. So let's just take maybe just 3 to 5 minutes and take 2 to 3 questions, if there are any, or 2 to 3 comments, and then we'll move right along. And I don't know that I'm going to be able to see all the comments coming or questions. So if anyone on my team sees, please let me know.
Amy, I'm just gonna jump in from the Head Start perspective a little bit and just say,
And I'm so sorry. Thank you. I'm so sorry.
you know, one of the conversations that we had during the meeting that you talked about earlier was about the ecosystem. So just to kind of double what Andrea said about us all, you know, rowing in the same direction and all of us being a united team. We had a great quote from some of our partners about the ecosystem and how we're all part of it. And so making sure that everybody's at the table is crucial. And then also from the Head Start perspective, just that equity in services for children and families. We want to make sure that everything that we're working on together in each of these sectors, that we have an equity that exists, and we use that lens as we do that. So I just wanted to jump in with that real quick.
I'm so glad you did, Lynn. I apologize. Thank you so much.
This is Jason. It's not really a question, it's more of a comment. Paula was talking about sort of the disjointed nature, especially when she was referring to the developmental screening portion. And, you know, Dr. Williams and Andrea talked about being at the table, collaborating, right? The partnership. It's the big ecosystem that Lynn just talked about. But I think part of that is, yes, if you're together in the same place, you get to know each other. That collaboration does allow for a relationship building. However, just that the disjointed nature comes from not just sort of different people doing the development screening maybe at different times, or maybe the protocols are different, or, you know, whatever the issues might be. I think another issue might be is sort of we have so many different entities that are regulated by different expectations, you know, whether it's federal, whether it's state. I think those different statutes and regulations, just by nature of history that exists, that when we're trying to do a coordinated, aligned, systematic approach is something we need to kind of not only just get to know, but then we have to think about how do we take all those different pieces and align them so that it can positively impact everyone involved in whichever sector they're in, rather than being more of a barrier initially, so that we are not functioning in a silo or we're feeling disjointed. And it's sort of like getting at what Lynn's talking about, right? How can you have equity when we're functioning in different pockets with different regulations? So I think it's a big task, but it's sort of figuring out, not that we have to have same single one regulation, but it's how do we sort of make it fit better, if that makes sense.
Thanks, Dr. Gilbert. Okay, so if there aren't any other comments, I want to thank our partners, and we definitely want to make sure that we push the logic model out when we share our action notes. Again, this is going to be our guiding document. I wanted to just quickly share too that a lot of the groundwork and important conversations regarding the needs assessment are happening now. You'll really see the launch of the needs assessment in September, but where we're really wanting and needing your help again is, you know, we want to use that frame of ready families, ready communities, ready schools. We want to utilize the Kentucky Regional Collaborative Network because they are the boots on the ground across the Commonwealth. But the conversations we're having include utilizing the advisory council across the Commonwealth as well, right? Connect it with your Kentucky Regional Collaborative Network. And, you know, you're our ambassadors, you're our leaders. And so, you know, more to come on that, but we just want you to know that We want you to be a very important part of this work and we need you. So more to come. And so moving on to the executive director report.
Amy, Thomas had his hand up, Dr. Williams.
Oh, I'm so sorry. Yes, yes.
Yeah, thank you. So I just want to say before we move on in this space with the council is that I do appreciate the sense-making meetings that we have been having led by the Governor's Office of Early Childhood. I feel that it has helped in regards to any questions and to ensure that we are definitely working together and not in isolation in regards to the needs assessment. So I just wanted to lift that up in this meeting just to give kudos to the Governor's Office of Early Childhood in regards to bringing the partners together to make sure we're on one accord in regards to the needs assessment and make sure that we're fulfilling all the activities within the preschool development grant.
You're muted.
Well, I gave the perfect answer, so I'm sorry that you're not going to hear it again. No, so, what I said is that, thank you, of course, Dr. Williams, but, that's our job. That's our role. We're happy to do it. We strive every day to, bring the right partners together so that Kentucky has that coordinated system of governance so that, more children show up for kindergarten better prepared. So, we wouldn't be able to do it if we didn't have such fantastic partners. So the more that each one of us around this leadership table understands this logic model and embraces it, helps us in the outreach, helps us share it, the better our refreshed strategic plan is going to be. So that's would be my ask. And again, thank you, Dr. Williams, and all the partners around the table. So for the executive director report, a couple things. Let's see. Number one, if you can believe it, we already submitted the first quarter report to the for the preschool development grant, and I'll just need to make sure that I follow all the internal protocols before I push that out. But as long as I do that, I'll be happy to share that. It was a solid report. We feel really great about it. I want to welcome, next slide, please. Another phenomenal new staff member we've recently onboarded. It feels like it's been a month, but I think it's been about 3 days. Rebecca Smith is on board for helping to support workforce and apprenticeships. She has a lot of years under her belt in childcare, leadership, professional development, and she's just come on board just a swinging. And we're really glad to have her. We're excited for you to meet her. Wanted to provide an update on the state plan. It is a, let's see, the KRS 20703, which is the duties of the Early Childhood Advisory Council. It's a state plan. It's a legal requirement, and it's due every 2 years. And that needs to be submitted internally at the end of June to then be submitted to the Legislative Research Council and the Governor's Office. And in a nutshell, I mean, that is just around, what our funding streams are, what our funding priorities are. It needs to align with the original intent from 2009. And we are still doing that, A, and B, we are still aligned with our 5-year strategic plan. As you all know, we talk about it at every meeting. So that will be done. The other updates include a thank you and congratulations to Kim Fithian. She's retiring. Kim, I think we're envious. But we thank you so much for your service over the years. and your service to the Early Childhood Advisory Council. And we're going to miss you very much.
Thank you very much. I appreciate that.
And I know that Dr. Cummings Smith wanted me to mention that Kentucky has been invited, although we have not. We've got to cross all of our T's and dot our I's to make sure that we can go, but Kentucky has been invited to their conference in Omaha. They are inviting select states to share insights from the preschool development grant, so that is exciting. And then the other exciting piece too is with the expansion of the Imagination Library to support early literacy efforts. Our team and the team from Kentucky Center for Statistics and our legal department, Dondra, who is on this call, who's a rock star, worked really, really hard on a memorandum of understanding with the with the something foundation, but it's the Imagination Library folks. Dondra, who is it?
Dollywood Foundation.
Dollywood Foundation.
Yeah.
And we are going to be collecting data birth through 5 so that we can measure birth through 3rd grade, actually, isn't it, Dondra?
No, they
Birth
only,
through 5?
they only serve children up to, their program stops servicing kids at 5.
5. I should have known that. I apologize. I'm trying to.
But
I'm
I think,
juggle too many things.
KY Stats does have up to, I think it will integrate into that up to 3rd.
Yeah. But the report that I'm trying to share that's exciting is for the first time, we're going to be able to collect and analyze that data. And so we're not just, doing a program and hoping it works, right? But we're going to be able to collect and analyze and report that data. So thank you for all of those engaged in that. So that was my short and sweet, but pretty robust, great things going on. That's my executive director report. So, Robin, I believe I'm turning it over right now. I'm not sure if our friends from the Fiscal Mapping Project, Children's Funding Project, if they're here or if we are going to shift it.
She's here.
I'm here, Amy.
Amelia Vaughn, thank you so much. Okay, so folks should remember Amelia from the preschool planning grant. We had a great opportunity to work with them to develop Kentucky's first fiscal map. And you've heard enough from me, so I'm turning it right over to Amelia, and she's going to give you the context, the opportunity we had over this past year, and then the opportunity we have moving forward. Amelia, it's all you. Next slide, please.
Thank you, Amy. Hi, everyone. It's nice to be with you today. I think I was coming to the ECAC meetings in Kentucky in 2019 because that's when we were still traveling everywhere, but it's still nice to be with you virtually today. And it's nice to be working with Kentucky again on a fiscal mapping project. This time we are updating the fiscal map. So that means updating it with more recent fiscal year data. And we're also expanding it to include funding for other services and supports for ages 0 through 24. And that's because Kentucky is participating in a learning cohort. It's called the State Child and Youth Fiscal Map Cohort. And it's 15 states across the country creating these cradle to career maps. And I just want to start off by saying a big thank you to the key partners and everyone that has been involved so far. And then Robin, if you could go to the next slide, please. And the next slide after that. Thank you. I'll just do a quick introduction for those who I haven't met yet. My name is Amelia Vaughn. I am the co-director of the research capacity team at Children's Funding Project. And we are a nonprofit social impact organization. We work across the country with states and localities, advocates, governor's offices, ECACs, national organizations to really help expand equitable opportunities for children and youth through strategic public financing efforts. And one piece of key research that we do is called a fiscal map. And if you go to the next slide, please, Robin, thank you. Oh, it looks like my slides are a little out of order. That's okay. I'll go with it. But to jump back, so Kentucky is a part of this, what we're calling the State Child and Youth Fiscal Mapping Cohort. This is a pilot for us. We've done fiscal maps a lot, like we did with you all in 2019, but this is our first time doing it with such a large group of states at one time, doing a cradle to career initiative. And also a big impetus behind this is to have all of the fiscal mapping language be the same across the state. So we're using the same data variables and how to describe the funding data, just to really start to create a movement around how we talk about children in need financing. So then we can then generate some momentum on how to improve that financing picture. And you can see Kentucky as a part of a good range of states involved. Next slide, please. And some of you have heard about the fiscal map, some of you have not. So just a very brief review of what a fiscal map is. It's an analysis of funding streams that support children and youth services. And for the Kentucky map, it's including federal funds, state funds, and federal relief funding. And what we try to do is move away from a traditional department-centered view of the budget and really make it a child-centered view. So these are just example graphics. Ours are actually a lot prettier and more interactive. But you can see we talk about the budget and how we're supporting in children and youth across outcomes or service categories, rather than what is one individual department, like what is their funding. And our main question that it answers is who, so what level of government, federal, state, local, invests how much, and then in what, and that can be in what service or what outcome or what population. And if you go to the next slide, please. There are many reasons to create a fiscal map, and I'm really excited to talk with you all today because I know you just were unpacking your logic model. If the goal, one of the goals of the logic model is to inline investments for sustainability and increase impact of some of your early childhood programs and services. And a fiscal map will help you understand what those current investments are, so then you can better align them and learn about what those funding streams are, who they support, administrative characteristics, et cetera. So you can use that as background research and a template to then have those conversations around alignment and coordination. And also, if your logic model is seen as some sort of strategic planning document, or it's a priority setting document for you all, the fiscal map can then help identify what's currently going into those priorities. And then a little bit more work can be done to say, okay, well then how much additional funding is needed based on what our current level is to really actualize that logic model. If you go to the next slide, please. And then back to the cohort. So just bringing you into the work that we have been doing with Kentucky over the past year, a little bit less than a year. Again, and this slide's wrong, to be 15 state fiscal maps looking at public investments, cradle to career, ages 0 to 24. And we've worked with a lot of you on this call to help collect that data and unpack what your funding streams are that support this age range, and then also code that data, like I said, to determine who's it impacting and what services is that funding going towards. And another reason why this is important is, one, it gives states more access to the data in this way, so it can be used in conjunction with strategic plans or logic models like you have. It also makes it easier to look across states and see what states are doing to innovatively fund early childhood or other youth services, or to look at yourself and other like states. Like actually in Kentucky, we're also mapping Tennessee, North Carolina, South Carolina, and Virginia. So there's a really strong region there that we can look at all of those states' data. And because this is also going to be open source, and that's a big goal of ours at CFP, is just to make it the budget data more easily digestible and more accessible for enhanced decision making. if you go to the next slide, please, this just shows a little bit of our timeline. We are currently wrapping up the very last piece of data collection, and then we'll go through and clean it and review it and turn it into a really beautiful written visual report that's interactive and that helps you look at the data and drill down on the data. And really each component of the report that we'll create for Kentucky is a tool that can be used for conversation and further research and decision making, and again in alignment with that logic model. So using that logic model as the centering point of what decisions and conversations that need to happen. And I'd love to come back and show you that final report when it's complete, but we'll be working really closely with Amy and her team to finalize the data, to analyze the data, and make sure it's the most accurate depiction of funding in Kentucky. And then if you go to the last slide, please, I think this is my very last slide. Oh, sorry, this must have been old deck. This is just the above is a screenshot of what the Tennessee map looks like. So that's just one portion of the final visualization. So it gives you a little bit of a sneak peek. And you'll also see here that each state will get its own map. So Kentucky will have your interactive fiscal map report that you can post on websites or share. It's a website link. And then we're also creating a national analysis, we meaning Children's Funding Project, to compile the cohort data and to look at trends across the 15 states and also pull out innovative funding and other positive examples of funding for children and youth. And then we'd really love to help you all use and disseminate that data. So any other ancillary products that could be helpful, like social media content or me joining on more webinars or meetings to discuss the data, we'd be very happy to help. And now I think this is my last slide on the fiscal map. Oh, wait, no, just kidding. One more, if you could advance one more, please. One more, thank you. Along with publishing and disseminating this year's data and report, we'd really like to continue and sustain engagement with you all around how to use the fiscal map. And there's a lot of ways that we can do this. And I think there's a lot of opportunity in Kentucky to use the logic model as a starting point for what we call a strategic public financing plan. So you have these goals, short, medium, and long-term goals. We have fiscal map that lets us know how much we're currently investing in those goals. And then we can say, okay, well, how much does it cost to reach those goals? And we'll get a total dollar amount. And then we can help you work through some potential revenue generation opportunities to chip away at those goals. I mean, it's not going to happen all at once, and that would be a lot to take on and a lot of money, but it's really good to kind of have that gaps analysis, that baseline amount, the total amount that you need, and then some various ways to fill that gap. So that's one thing that we could do. We'd also love to work to try to find a really good house and home for the fiscal map, and then train somebody in the state to keep that as a living document. And there are other ways that we can institutionalize that process or help institutionalize that process. And then lastly, once a state has a fiscal map, the opportunity for localities to use that state data in order to create their own local fiscal map really opens up, because it gives the locality a roadmap to say, okay, these are all of the funding streams, federal and state, that are in the state. And then they can say, how much land's in my county and what are the additional county funds to add. So it really is a great tool across the state that can be used. And we'd love to help you with that as various opportunities arise to do so. And then my last slide is just a thank you. I'll say this, Kentucky is the winner for the most responsive data collection and outreach. And I so appreciate that, because it can be a very arduous process. And so thank you all to everyone who's been here or who's helped with that data collection process and just being really receptive to the project and also very timely in your data collection. I think I'm available. I can stay on for a few more minutes to answer any questions. Everyone has been wonderful and timely. It really is true. It's been a big difference. I can tell that you all are very coordinated and connected and also supportive of the work, which I appreciate. But if anyone has questions about the fiscal map, I can put my email in the chat, or I can also just stay on for a few more minutes. What is the timeline? That's a good question. We're hoping, so our goal is that in August, early August, we will release the fiscal map data. So that means that Kentucky State, your interactive report would be available sometime in late June, and then in early August, Children's Funding Project will hold a webinar to talk about that national analysis. And then, like I said, I'm certainly available and would love to come back to you all later in the summer or in the fall, or talk to individual agencies about what the data shows and how to use it.
So I'm going to jump in if that's okay. Team, when you see other hands up, let me know. Let me know how we're doing on time, but this is just a really important place to pause. In our office, we say, like, if we're not having fun while we're working, why are we here? Because we work really hard, but we also really have fun too. But Amelia just said something really important. And Amelia, you didn't say this to us when we were meeting, what you just said, that,
Oh yeah, it's true. I'm not just saying it. I mean, because I would say also in Kentucky, we started a little bit later with data collection because Amy has done a really good job being very thoughtful on how to best engage with the rest of the state and really tee up the project. But you all also are now finishing data collection a lot faster than some of the other states, just because of your responsiveness and your acceptance of the project. So I am extremely grateful for that.
Well, so thank you for that, Amelia. And I want to sort of then turn that back around to the use of data. And I just think it's really important to share the process with the advisory council. And I think for others that are listening in to this meeting, so that everyone understands that our office and leadership, that we're using investments and we're being good stewards. So, this first fiscal map and that investment was done well before anyone who worked here in this office was here. And, there were people from the advisory council that were still here, but we took all of that information because that's our job to do so, right? And there were great things that happened from that fiscal map and from some of the process, but there were flags on that process. And there were some sort of big flags like, hey, you didn't really engage us that much. And there were some big surprises at the end. And, we really paid attention to that. And we had that conversation with Amelia right up front, that we wanted to be super transparent. We wanted to really engage our partners in the process, because this money and this funding, this is for all kids and all families. And this is all about impact for Kentucky's children and families. And so we were really intense about it at first, Amelia, weren't we? About making sure that we really did it right and we followed the data and we followed the recommendations. And so anyway, I just wanted to sort of circle back to that. And I wanted the advisory council to know that we followed that direction from the evaluation. And Amelia, thank you so much for sharing that. And if there are lessons learned and, you know, or any gaps too, or things where we need to improve, we also want to know that too. If there are any things that you know right off the bat that you can share with us right now, we'd love to hear it.
Oh gosh, I can't say I have anything top of mind right now. I've just been so focused about making sure all of the right data contacts and parts of the data have been in. So I haven't really looked at a higher level at the analysis yet, but I'd love to share those with you another time that I can join you all.
Okay, great. And again, this fiscal piece, perfect timing with the logic model. And how are we going to sustain, you know, how are we going to get to that final goal of identifying bright spots and aligning fiscal investments to sustain priorities to accelerate growth and long-term impact. So we're going to have you back, Amelia. Consider ourselves true partners in this work, right?
Awesome. I'm excited for you all and I appreciate it. Thank you for having me on today.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Take care.
So
Bye.
next slide, and I believe we're turning it over to Megan Greenwell on our staff. Oh, no, we're not, to Amy Hood. I'm sorry. No introduction needed. We're happy to have Amy Hood, Executive Director of the Kentucky Family Child Care Network. Dr. Hood.
Thank you very much. Yeah, that's really exciting work. And I just want to say thank you for letting me be here to be able to present and talk to you about the Kentucky's Family Child Care Network. I've been a member of the ECAC for a very long time, but this is the first time I've actually presented to the ECAC. So that's an exciting opportunity and the first time to be officially presenting as the Executive Director for TTAS, Training and Technical Assistance Services. I was just named Executive Director about 2 weeks ago. And with that falls the duties of the Family Child Care Network. So thank you for letting me be here. I'm really envious of Kim Fithian because she and I got our start together a very long time ago and she's retiring and I keep working. So I've done something wrong, Kim. If you don't care to go on to the next slide, I will try to give you a little bit more about Kentucky's Family Child Care Network. And, you know, I really think that this is, and I hope you all will join me as thinking about this as well as a bright spot. We are a big partner in Kentucky. This is actually, the Family Child Care Network is actually Kentucky is the first state to actually have funded a state network designed specifically to do training and technical assistance for family child care providers across the state. So our funding, we just got started. I kind of say we're still toddlers because we were funded for the first time, July 1st, 2021. So in just about another week or so, we'll be 2 years old, we'll be starting our third year. We'll turn 2. And we've done a lot of work in those first 2 years. So we've spent the first year really getting established, really getting systems in place, getting out there and doing to the family, working with family child care. And we've just seen so much growth over the first 2 years. It's just phenomenal. And so we're very excited about our work. Our mission statement is pretty direct. Family Child Care Network of Kentucky recruits and supports in-home care, families and communities to increase and sustain access to those quality early learning experiences, because that's where we want. We want children to be safe. We want them to be in places where they are having quality care learning experiences so they're ready for school. So our mission is all the same. So thinking about that the plan from the very beginning, accelerating growth and that long-term impact, family child care homes can offer those same pieces and parts that we are wanting across our state to really make an impact for our young children and families. Our vision, simple, Elevating Family Childcare in Kentucky. And up until just now, that was the end of it, but we are very excited because starting in July, when we turn 2, we are actually going to be taking on the quality piece for family childcare homes as well. So now our vision statement is elevating family childcare in Kentucky from start to stars. So we are able to provide assistance and training for brand new people who are wanting to become regulated and do the right thing for children and families, working with established family childcare homes, as well as now we will be providing that quality piece. So we're making that transition from our sister network, Child Care Aware, to work with that as well. So we're still working on the transition, but we're all working in partnership for that. And as you can see, I won't read all of those, but those are our core values as well. Relationships, collaboration, trust, all of those things. We know family child care providers, it's all based on relationships and trust when they are working to do what's right for children and families. We have so many unregulated providers across the state, and we know they're doing good things with children, and we just really want to work to try to get those folks regulated as the professionals they are, and the fact that they are small business. We're really trying to grow our workforce and raise that availability and access for childcare in the state. If you could go to the next slide, I will say, so just to kind of let you see how we're funded, because I'm a pretty visual person, the Division of Child Care, which is in the Cabinet for Health and Family Services, as you all very well know, they are the ones who actually fund our network. And so if you'll go to the next slide, you will see that it's the Quality Enhancement Branch of the Division of Child Care is to whom we report. So we are part of that Quality Initiative section, and now we are part of the QRIS as well. So what happened was, and you can go on to the next slide, but what happened was the Division of Child Care contracted with TTAS. TTAS is a department. I don't know if people really recognize that, but TTAS is a department at Western Kentucky University. Our department actually is celebrating our 50th year of services this year. They were born to provide training and technical assistance to Head Start programs. And over the years, our mission has grown. So you will see that in our department at Western, we actually have 2 branches. We have a training branch and a child services branch. Under our training branch falls our national Head Start training system. We have national trainers who provide training specific for Head Start. And then we have our state Family Child Care Network under that. And then the local program, we actually have a local campus child care program and Head Start program here in Bowling Green, Kentucky. So that's how TTAS is set up. And so we have a contract with the Division of Child Care to offer the Family Child Care Network services. So the next, I'll show you who really is our team. There, if you want to go on to the next slide, you can really see our team that provides directly the network services. So we at TTAS, then Western, contracts with 4 individual agencies to ensure our state is covered. So we at Western also serve as a regional hub because we cover the Lakes area, the Two Rivers area, and part of Salt River. So basically, we like to say we have from E-Town over to the Mississippi River. EC Learn, our partners in Northern Kentucky, headed by Sandy Woodall. I know many of you have met Sandy and know Sandy from her work. They cover the Northern Bluegrass area as well as the other half of the Salt River. And then our friends at FORCE of Louisville cover Jefferson County. And even though it's one area, they have the largest number of homes. And I'll share a little bit more about that in a moment. Child Care Council of Kentucky in Lexington covers the Southern Bluegrass, and the Appalachian Child Care Network serves Eastern Kentucky and the Cumberland regions. So that's how it works. The state gave us money and gave us directions on what we were supposed to do to offer this network. And we called in our partners and have divided those services across the state. The next slide actually gives you a visual map so you can see those different areas. So I'm not sure. I kind of think that maybe, I'm not sure if the next slide is mine or not, because I think some of out. So I just want to make sure. Oh, good. There they are. Okay, good. I wasn't sure how many more slides I had. I wanted to make sure I touched on a few more points. One of the things, and you'll see those are the names that I just read off. So you can see who our regional leaders are. And just to let you know that we spent a great deal of time in the beginning to ensure that we had a very good data tracking and a record keeping system. We wanted to be sure that the state always had the most up-to-date and accurate information that we could. And so we have we're really impressed with it. It works really well, where we have family child care specialists are employed by each of these agencies, and they're the ones who are out there working, meeting providers, helping them get the job done. And they keep wonderful records, and we are able to help at any minute with various projects and things like that. So I just want to share, with that being said, that we have, since our inception of 2021 up until last month, we have seen an increase of 171 new family child care homes. Those folks have become regulated or certified in some way. So to me, that is amazing. Just goes to show how important it is. The state has done a lot of work with and really recognizing family child care as the important place that they are for services. So yes, it's really, really exciting that we have heard that. The Family Child Care Network, we really want to be sure, and we ask that now that you know about us, that you make sure and invite us as much as possible to be your partners, to be included on various committees and those sorts of things, because we are working with people who have, they want to make sure our family child care providers are a business. So that's a big key component of our work, is helping them see themselves as a small business. So increasing the workforce. But we also know that we are here to ensure that children are healthy, that they are safe, and that they are ready for school when they get to their area schools. So we all have the same mission, and we really want to make sure that we get included in the various kinds of things, and really try to grow this even more than it is, especially since Kentucky's kind of shining out there right now as the only state to have a statewide network. We just hope that, you'll remember us. We'll be able to provide information to you at any given time. I see in the chat box, Amy asks if we have data or information on the enrollment in the state's quality rating system. I will tell you that we are still, because we're making that transition, Amy, I don't have that right this moment. I do think, no, I started to say a number, but that was a number for something else. We had meetings last week with Andrea and Shade with the STARS group, Michelle Johnson from Child Care Aware, where we're making that transition. We have another meeting tomorrow to kind of really lay out our transition process. And that's when we'll be getting more information about that at this time. So I'll be happy to share that with you, because that's one thing we want to be able to look at too, is that participation, because what we hope is what we know about family child care, and I mentioned this with the first slide, is relationships are key. And when we have people who are only one or two people in the home doing the work, and they don't feel comfortable or confident making phone we're hoping that by building our relationships with our family child care specialists going in from the beginning and helping build that, we're actually going to see an increase in those numbers. That's our goal. So we will be really looking at and watching that data. So I'll be happy to share that as well. One special project, I don't know if it's okay for me to mention this, but just to kind of give you another idea of the projects that we can handle that might help support other folks' work. I know that one of the barriers that we have seen in the access and availability of childcare, whether it be family childcare homes or childcare centers, one of the barriers is always things around zoning. And with family childcare homes, that's a big barrier. And so we've known that for a while and we've tried working with it. And Andrea reached out to us in, I think it was November, and asked me a question about where does all the zoning come from? And zoning is county specific, and in some cases county or city specific. And so we were like, we really need to get this information. All it took was a couple of emails to our family child care specialist, and we now have a living document with except for a few that didn't call us back, but every county and their zoning requirements, or at least where you can find that, and the costs. And so that those are the kinds of things we can do, as well as we can be your partner and your support, because our family child care specialists are the experts on those businesses and and the people in the community, because we're all spread out. I'm not sure if there's another slide left. I'm sorry, I can't remember that. If there's not, I want to put in the chat box. That's our 800 number for the Family Child Care Network. You can give us a call. You can check out our website because it's new. It's still in progress, but it's new and we're excited about it. So that's our website. But if you ever have any questions or you need to reach anyone with the Family Child Care Network, you can call that number and we can connect you to any of our regional leaders or any of our family child care specialists. I think I'm done. So if there's anything else anyone would like to ask, or I'm happy to share.
Well, Dr. Hood, congratulations. The data are very strong. And again, if anyone has questions, please make connections. These folks are talented. They're all over the state. So please don't hesitate to reach out. And thank you very much. We're going to turn it over to Megan Greenwell and Rena.
Andrea Day has her hand up real quick.
I promise I'll make it brief.
No, we're fine. Go ahead.
I just wanted to take a moment and, the work that the Family Child Care Network has done in the short time that they have been up and going is tremendous. And that, like Amy said, the relationships, it's all about the relationships, and including them in our statewide meetings. Unfortunately, family child care gets lost a lot because out of 2,000 providers, there's about 215 that are certified. The rest are licensed facilities. And so it's really easy for the family child care provider to get lost in there. So really bringing that into focus and really using that as a way to build our workforce. And as Amy said, these are small businesses. So it's empowering small entrepreneurs to be more involved in their local economies. We're also building in a strengthening business practice component to that all the specialists have been trained in and work with those providers so that it can be a sustainable business, especially in our childcare deserts. And I know I mentioned it last month, but or at our last meeting, but in 2 years' time, they also hosted a statewide Family Child Care Network conference. And they had over 100 providers come together. And those folks normally, they don't get to participate in a whole lot because they're running their program out of their home. and they don't have that opportunity to interact with their peers. And so really being able to do that and have such a great turnout, and they're in the plans to do that again next year. So we're just very proud of all the work that they have done. And as Amy said, reach out, because they are boots on the ground and they know their local communities, and it's something we all need to get behind.
Thank you. Thank you, Andrea. And I just wanted to say one more thing that I really probably should have said at the very beginning, but we're also all about awareness, because we also believe that what a lot of folks really don't understand is that their homes can be regulated and should be regulated. So it's really a family education adventure as well, because a lot of times people will call and they'll say, oh, well, we've only got, 10 kids in our home. We don't really have to do anything till we're over 10, right? And we're like, no, Kentucky law says if you have more than 3 unrelated in your home, you're supposed to be certified or regulated in some way. And so it's an eye-opening for many people. It's eye-opening. And a lot of times there's negativity spread throughout the media, and, things happen and, oh, they were at this family home. Well, yeah, they might have been in a home, but that home wasn't even regulated. That part doesn't make the news. So it really is, we're trying to build awareness and positivity around family childcare homes as well. So the more we can get the word out and the more we can share with our partners, the better off we all are. So thank you again.
Thanks, you all. Okay, so I'm going to move us on to the next part of the agenda. So as you guys can remember, last year we were given the opportunity and we voted to approve over $8 million with surplus tobacco settlement funds to be go into a developmental screening strategy. And then at the last advisory council meeting, some of our consultants and partners presented with Dr. Connie White on the results and the findings of where we stand with those surplus tobacco settlement funds and where the developmental screening strategy is. And they were able to share a lot of exciting and upcoming information with you all on that. And we've been given the opportunity again through leadership for additional surplus tobacco settlement funds again this year. And so today we're going to propose that we use the $2.9 million to expand that program with the developmental screening project. And so we really want to build an integrated data system, which is focusing on us sustaining those bright spots and expanding our developmental screening statewide. And so I'm going to pass it to Rena Gratz and Andrea Day to talk a little bit more about what the key activities would include, and a little bit of budget breakdown as well. And then we can always ask questions and have discussion following that. So I'm going to pass it to Rena.
Good afternoon, all. First, I want to say it's good to see everyone, and amazing information today. Just great things going on in our state. I'm so proud to be a part of this group and the work that's happening, and thankful for the leadership that we have. With regard to this proposal, I want to remind the advisory council that in March, in our March meeting, we had the Stellar Group come and present findings regarding the developmental screening landscape. If you recall, last year, the governor's office commissioned a report to better understand the current landscape of developmental screening. Many of you alluded, Paula, at the very beginning of this meeting, alluded to the disjointedness, right? So, so really what we wanted, the governor's office wanted to do was get a pulse on a snapshot of the current landscape, where we are across the Commonwealth, in order to better inform us how to use the $8 million in tobacco settlement funds to really move the needle on access to developmental screening as part of our comprehensive early childhood system. And so that landscape report was used to develop what is now a proposal, a strategic developmental screening plan. And so with this plan to use the additional tobacco settlement dollars, first of all, the 4 goals of this plan are to have a strong early childhood system coordination for developmental screening. The second goal is high quality data and standardized training. The third goal is making sure Kentucky families are informed about developmental health and related services. And finally, that all Kentucky families have strong access to developmental screening. So this particular proposal is really focusing on the second goal. It impacts the other goals, but it's focusing first of all on the high quality data piece. And so the proposal today is to use the tobacco settlement, the additional tobacco settlement dollars to do the following activities. You see that on the screen. If you'll go to the next slide, please. Conducting research on existing data systems. So what data systems do we have in place? And we know that there are multiple data systems being used across the state and they are not coordinated, but looking at what's out there, what data elements are being collected, where, with whom, how, what tools are being used, and then determining Kentucky's specific needs and requirements. So what are our needs in order to really make sense of our landscape and to achieve our goals of widespread access to developmental screening, universal access to developmental screening. And then from that, determining the best model to meet our state's needs and our objectives, and then designing the data system and working with technical teams to build that data system. And then finally, training providers and stakeholders on the data system itself and how to use that data system. So in other words, the recommendations that the Stellar Group made when they proposed, when they gave us the landscape report, those were all used to develop this proposal, this proposed strategic plan for developmental screening in Kentucky that we are putting forth today. So, Andrea, do you have anything to add to this?
So yes, so some of you may or may not know that the Council for Post-Secondary Education currently has a work group, an early childhood workforce work group that's being led by the Lieutenant Governor to discuss how Kentucky could successfully implement possibly universal pre-K. And so part of this additional funding would be used to facilitate those work group meetings to make sure that all voices are at the table, all perspectives are heard, and the decisions are well informed and take into account each area that touches ECE, to take in that perspective so that there's not unintended consequences and that we can see the success of that work come to fruition. And as you can see here on the screen, they are asking, we're wanting to use $7,000 to support that work as well.
Thanks, Andrea and Rena. So right now we're going to just go and see if anybody has any questions before we take the vote.
Megan, I'm just going to jump in quickly and just remind folks too, during the March 15th meeting, Dr. Amanda Ellis presented regarding the Commonwealth Education Continuum convening, which is, Andrea mentioned that. So she did present that group is chaired by the Lieutenant Governor, Commissioner Jason Glass, and Aaron Thompson. So I just wanted to remind folks of that.
Dr. Gilbert?
Thank you. Can you go to the prior slide where Rena was talking about the pieces for the. Okay, so I had a question. So Rena, are you saying the intention is that fourth bullet is to actually design a new data system, or is that is inclusive of all different types of developmental screeners from birth through prior to the kindergarten begins, because that's already in state. So before they go to kindergarten, or are you thinking after the research on existing data system that looking at the needs that it's potentially is that maybe selecting one of the data system that already exists? I wasn't clear because it says it's going to design and then you're going to actually build it with the technical team and train them.
Yes, so the intent really is to look at what is occurring currently across the state and definitely understanding that and definitely with consideration to the fact that any data system, when you have unification in terms of your instruments, that will make the data collection easy. However, I don't believe that has been predetermined. I know the Stellar Group is definitely gearing us towards recommending, unifying that process. However, really, I think part of this process, the intent of this process is really to see not just what's out there and what's being used and how it's being used, but really how can we meet the needs of our state best. And if the conclusion is that the needs of the state can best be met by having one or two instruments, if that's the best way to have a unified system where we can be able to read and understand the data across our state and be able to pinpoint areas of need and strengths even, then that will be the recommendation for this, and the system will be designed to meet those needs. So I think before that fourth bullet, it's very important to look at those first three bullets that will determine how that fourth bullet will play out, I guess. And Amy, please feel free to jump in.
No, I think you've nailed it. And, Dr. Gilbert, if you think about, you were a part of, some of those focus groups and others here on the advisory council, the developmental screening has had lots of stops and starts and stops and starts in Kentucky. And the intent behind this original project last year when the advisory council voted on it, remember the recommendation came from the Data and Shared Accountability Committee, because the reason that Data and Shared Accountability Committee was originally convened, and Rena, I see you shaking your head because Rena was the chair. That's why Rena gets to come to you all with these recommendations, is because for the state of Kentucky, we had been flat for 5 years. 50% of kids showing up for kindergarten underprepared. And so that group of experts was convened to say, and what is it we're going to do about it? And what else can we say? How are we going to address this? And so after months and months of digging and digging, what we uncovered, and Rena helped me out and anybody else who was on that committee, was there's not aggregate data before the Brigance. And so one of the recommendations that came out of that committee was there's a lot of developmental screening going on in the state of Kentucky, but it's not collective. It's not housed in a system. And so it's really important that we get our act together and that we grow it and we organize it and we mobilize it and we have a state system. So I hope that helps. But it will be for sure, just to build on what Rena said, it is about research, having all the right people at the table and saying what talks to what makes the most sense. But in the end, how do we walk away from this in the end and have a system of developmental screening for Kentucky? So Paula Golf, we're not limping along. Paula wishes she never said that. We're limping along.
So I guess I was just curious as to when we're voting on this with the funds, tobacco settlement funds, the surplus amount, minus the amount for the continuum of that work group. Are we then voting to approve that the first 3 bullets will be conducted, and whether it results in designing a specific data system or a different, not necessarily designing a new data system or creating a new one, but sort of settling on or coming up with consensus on whatever system that might look like. So I guess I'm just curious as to what are we, the specific points, because we already have different data systems. So like, there's TOTS for the early intervention system, right? And then there's Infinite Campus for the school system that collects some of the information. So they have the assessment data and different kinds of pieces in different existing systems. So that's why whether we're going to build a new system. So I was just trying to figure out what the specific funds approval request is, because I agree with all the bullet points and it's logical, but are we approving then saying, yes, you will actually end up with the last bullet where you actually train them because you have a specific one data system that's universal, aligned, unified, which is great, but that's a new system that's already built, and then, because that takes a lot of time. So I didn't know what we were really voting for as far as funding.
Yes, we are voting on all of the bullets to be encompassed in this scope of work for the 2.9 million. The idea is definitely to end up with a unified data system. Dr. Gilbert, you mentioned all those different sources of data. And again, not just for the purpose of the state being able to coordinate efforts, towards, universal access to developmental screening and all kids and families having access to that, but really empowering local communities to be able to use the data, all the partners in the local community to be able to come together and use data that everybody can access. So if, for example, those data sources, those existing data systems, they are being used by specific sectors only and can only be accessed by those sectors. And it would be, it would behoove us to design a system that can be universally used by every member in this continuum, right? From prenatal to 5 and beyond, to be able to access the same data system to inform our planning and our work towards increasing access to developmental screening. So yes, the goal is really to have a universal data system.
Okay, any other questions before we vote? I don't see any others. So we're going to go ahead and vote. We will now vote on the surplus tobacco settlement plan. Do we have a motion?
I'll make the motion. It's Jay Silk.
Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Thank you, Dr. Thomas. Dr. Williams, sorry. All those in favor say aye.
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 Any opposed, say no. Okay, thank you very much. Your vote is approved for the tobacco settlement dollars. Next slide. Okay, and our next meeting is September 21st. Our favorite leader will be back, Dr. Cummings Smith. It should be in person at the Mayo Underwood Building in Frankfurt. And as always, if anyone has any follow-up questions, you want to meet individually about any of our specific strategies or initiatives, please don't hesitate to reach out. And, you know, we want to thank you on behalf of the Commonwealth for doing all that you do to lead the work, to be ambassadors for the work, to ensure that kids have high quality experiences before they enter kindergarten. And I want to personally thank my team. We have been under capacity for several months. Megan and Lynn are really incredible leaders. They never say no, they always step up, and I appreciate them very, very much. Rebecca and Robin are great additions to the team, and I appreciate them very much. Like to make a motion to adjourn? Is there a motion to adjourn?
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
Is there a second?
I second it, Amy.
Thank you, and congratulations, Kim Fithian.
Thank you.
Have a good one, everyone.
Aye.